Welcome to Business Mastery with Dawn Kennedy, your quick under 45-minute dose of expert insights and strategies to make a positive impact on your business and life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Today, we are talking about building that durable brand and how businesses evolve over years. And, to be sustainable, you can't stay stuck, but you also maybe shouldn't, as we put it, rip and replace the Band-Aid when we were talking about doing this episode. So I have Kat here. She's going to talk us through all kinds of things and hopefully give you some perspective on what your own business could be doing. So, Kat, thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation. In fact, we had started our discussions a little bit ago. It's lovely to do this in January in a new year.
Yes.
So I'm Kat, and founded Coologee in September of 2021. So we're in our 5th year, which I'm feeling very grateful and proud of. Because if you're a small business owner, getting to year 5 is always a big milestone. If you get it to 5, you're likely to be at 20. So super happy to be here. My background is over 25 years in marketing, consulting, advertising, building brands, building digital experiences, and doing so with an eye towards really great storytelling, as well as psychology and insights driven from my background as having studied psychology in the past. So I think it's a unique perspective, and I'm really excited to share that with you.
Amazing. So we started talking, and I'm just going to jump right into my notes. We really started talking about um, the evolution of things over time, and the very first example we talked about was progressive insurance. Can you start there? So I think
Yeah.
almost everybody listening has heard of progressive insurance, and they've probably seen the commercials.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had the great fortune of having worked at Arnold and HC Boston that's had that relationship for, I think it's been 16, over 16, maybe approaching 18 years if I think about it, which is an amazing, long, standing, durable relationship. You don't really see that very often in our business. Was sort of traded sides and ended up moving to Cleveland and ran the marketing strategy for the entire organization for 4 years. And I was actually brought in for a couple of important jobs. The first one was to make sure that we caught our customer brand up to our consumer brand. And in the world of progressive, when we think about a consumer brand, that's the prospect direct acquisition brand. Um, Historically, Progressive had been spending a lot of money and continues to do so in media channels that are meant to introduce people to the brand and entice them to come and to shop. But for that company to grow and to be profitable, it had to get better at retaining customers so that the ability for the additional customers to build that growth model that would be sustainable over time was more effective. And so I had to come in and figure out, well, what does it mean to create a platform for the customers? And I called it the Stay platform.
I love it. Yeah.
And something that's interesting is if you're building a brand, and most of us do not have the investment dollars that Progressive has, but you really have to think back to that psychology that I started talking about, which is if all of the imagery, like Flow, the shop assistant, like the superstore, which was what was dominating when I started working on that brand back in 2015, is all linked to shop, 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 change, change, change. That's something that's sort of embedded in our psyche. So, what happens when you have become a customer and now it's the same platform? It's the same character that has been sort of Pavlovianly imprinted with this idea, oh, something changed. I should probably shop my insurance, which is not what you want in a customer marketing platform. And so we had to put something else in its place that was really about taking care of and being at the service of its people. Um, the other job I had was to lessen our dependency on Stephanie Courtney, who was the actress and still is the actress that plays flow. The reason why I'm pretty certain that it's been 18 years since, actually, no, it's almost 20. My oldest was born about the same time that Progressive launched its first flow ads.
Isn't that fun?
So she's been doing this for a while. But if you think about it, that means that who Flow is for the younger generation is different than maybe for you and I, and it may not feel as relevant anymore. And so, given the fact that, hey, we can't have everything feature Flow, that's not going to last for forever, especially the Flow as depicted by the actress Stephanie Courtney. We also had a little bit of a relevancy problem because Progressive was becoming mom and dad's brand, not my brand for those young folks, particularly the young homeowners. And so, again, going back to psychology, knowing that we wanted to show young homeowners that we could do their auto and their home. For most of us, our home is the most important purchase that we've ever made. I mean, I remember signing my first mortgage and shaking, thinking, oh my gosh, can I do this? And wondering, how do I do this? And what does it mean to be a homeowner? And, the people I turned to were my parents. Because when we take that next step, that's scary and it feels like adulting, which back then was the hashtag adulting phenomenon that was a minute ago, but was very relevant and still, I think, is relevant today.
I think
I
so.
mean, we tend to look at our parents as the ones that are responsible, that know what they're doing, and so the creative team at Arnold did a really great job of turning that into what's now the iconic, Dr. Rick campaign, which I gotta be honest with you, my middle daughter reminded me is 10 years old because she remembers being 7 when it launched. So that's been around for a minute too. Can you believe it?
I can't actually, and everybody listening, I think, would be able to at least recall, some of the ads with Flo and some of the Dr. Rick campaigns, but you said something really interesting, and that is the first channel is the awareness of the brand. I wonder how many of us as business owners, even when we cross these milestones of 5 years, 8 years, 12 years, are still looking at the awareness as being the key to their business marketing when actually because the way that I think the media or social media anyway has said it's like, okay, so you have awareness, then you have trust, then you have conversion. And then
Mhm.
there's nothing after conversion. So if you look at a lot of the marketing suggestions that are made for smaller businesses, not enterprise, where you guys have tons of talented people and analysts and researchers, and you can track trends and you can see consumer behavior. On the small business side, and when I say small business, the SBA says it's 300 people, $40 million in revenue. That's not small. To me, that's like, wow, that's a huge business. So the translation between what
Mhm.
you were seeing and how it had to evolve to join the next generation, how often do we miss that on Main Street because we're still stuck in this idea of awareness, build trust, relationship, conversion, and then just repeat business is not seen as another level to be marketed to or taken care of.
It's so interesting because it feels so natural to say, "Yes, of course, I have to go out and do awareness driving so I get my customers to come in." Um, I think what that ends up missing is the notion of, "Alright, so somebody has come in." The most important thing a business owner can do is keep them as a retaining customer. Right? And so we often talk about what is an allowable cost per acquisition. And anyone should have a general understanding. Even if you're a small organization, you can do some back of the envelope math saying, okay, what are you putting out in terms of either people who are doing your social media or PR efforts or email marketing, or some of us are doing local radio or print or digital, what's the total cost of that? And then how many customers came in that year and what was the amount of revenue per customer? Then you know what the actual cost is versus what the allowable cost is. That allowable cost can get bigger if that customer comes in more than once. if that customer becomes a repeat customer. And there are two really, really important things that every person needs to know, which is past the bottom of the funnel, as you rightly pointed out. That first is, what is the onboarding experience? We forget that once somebody comes in and becomes a customer, whether you're B2B or B2C, that there is a bit of an acculturation that happens, right? There is an element of welcoming. There is an element of gratitude for you coming and giving the trust that you have or giving us a go. Um, the majority of first party recommendations happen within the first 30 days of a new customer experience. The same is true actually for employee recruiting. You're much more likely to get employees who just joined to recommend working for your company within the first 30, maybe at the very end, it could be 90 days of being there. And frankly, there's one really simple psychological reason for it. It's a confirmation bias. We want to feel like we've done a great job making this decision. And so we want to welcome in others to partake in it. And should they either join as an employee or become a customer, that's confirmation that we made a right decision and it feels good. And so that welcoming moment, that onboarding, is super duper important. And then the next one is keeping in touch with folks so that you are top of mind when the next need that you fit uh, comes about. And that is really that long term, lot of work trying to figure out how to have a more personalized conversation so that you're reinforcing the reasons that people gave you a chance in the first place. And we often think about that not in terms of customer marketing or retention marketing, but really reacquisition. Like, how do you continue to reacquire somebody so they're continually making a decision to be your customer again, which then opens up that 30 to 90-day window of a referral. And it's a virtuous cycle.
This is just came to me while you were talking about that. How many of us have done like a welcome sequence when somebody buys online or they do something and then maybe there's a newsletter every other week or something, but I wonder if there's just not a gap in Main Street or small businesses where we're not really doing the onboarding. What
Yeah,
you
I
are
don't think we
specifically
are.
talk about because we're so used to turning it then over to customer experience. But is there a gap in onboarding? And if there is, what are we doing to maybe think through that or address it in our own business? Because again, to your point, depending on what you sell and how often you sell it, it is reacquisition. Not everybody's in commodities where it's something that they get every month or every 2 months. It might be something twice a year. And we are taught literally awareness, stay top of mind, but are we taught onboarding as a almost a gate to that retention?
Yeah. Well, and I'll give you a couple of examples that might make it more concrete. Let's take car purchasing, right? Dealerships really want to make sure that you're coming back to them. I mean, if we look at the economics of selling cars in this day and age, dealers do not make money on the car purchase itself. In fact, the amount of additional revenue that comes from the difference between the true cost of that vehicle and then what it's sold for on the lot, it can be as low as, $1,500 for a new vehicle. That's not how these organizations are able to keep going. They're able to make money on the financing experience, which is a version of onboarding. You're onboarding somebody as a new car owner, um, and then they do it through the service that comes into play. And I think what ends up happening is that there's such a myopic focus on sale, sale, close, close, that taking a step back and thinking about the psychology of the experience of having gratitude to the person who has come in and is doing the second largest purchase in most adult humans' lives.
Right.
And then understanding that not every moment should be turned into a sales moment, because if they come back once, twice, three times, then the value of that individual is much more than the one deal that's being made. And there are ways that you have to be able to do that. Think about when you go to Nordstrom, for example, which has been, historically fantastic about walking your package around and handing it to you. We're bombarded with online shopping opportunities that we feel are very personalized in this day and age. So even a company like a Nordstrom has to sit back and think, well, then how can we sort of onboard these customers, complete a transaction where it feels like a promise for a continuation instead of the closing of a sale. And it's going to take more than just email marketing to be able to do that.
Right. This is pretty eye-opening about how we as business owners view this. I don't want to dismiss this and say, well, we all see customers as transactions. I don't think that's true, especially for the smaller businesses. We see them as real human beings who want that reassurance or they're made a good choice or that their customer experience is excellent and that we're available and you can reach us. But I do think that the way you do that in year 1, the way you do it in year 8 or year 25, or for an insurance company, which is, if I have to call them something bad happened, or
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
Nordstrom is what, 80 years old, I think? Nordstrom was, like, from the 1940s, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, so they're still finding ways in 2025 to meet the customer, or 26 now, I guess, to meet the
Mhm.
customer sort of where they are. And this evolution of progressive through the generations is a huge sort of thread to pull as our businesses mature. So if it's not just the email marketing, right? Because everybody knows you get the purchase and then you'll get the email and it's going to onboard you and welcome you. It's going to give you the customer service number. Here's your point of contact. That's generally what I think Main Street's been told to do. I
Mm.
don't I don't know that we've ever actually had, and it's not intuitive, that beyond that newsletter that goes out every month or something like that, that there's actually a little bit more room for that relationship of retention is really kind of what I'm hearing through all of this.
Well, and I think that what it requires is a mindset that you're right. It's not fair to say that every business owner has a transactional mindset. There is, however, pressure, financial pressure to
Yeah.
keep sales going because that's how you do same calendar year, growth and profitability. Um, but I do think that we're entering a really, really interesting time where it's becoming pretty apparent to a lot of us that we're spending too much time in the digital sphere and that it's taking a pretty negative toll on our sense of well being. The adoption of AI, the proliferation of AI is even challenging what our understanding of having a personal interaction means. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine this morning, and he was saying his 10-year-old son is now just assuming all the videos that he sees on YouTube are AI generated and that they're not real. And so I think what is fascinating is there's beginning to be a realization that what is old is new again, which is a return to in person, a return to community, an ability to, look into the whites of your eyes and understand this is a person to person interaction. And so if we think about our customers as the beginning of a build out of a community, what else can we do? I'll give you a Main Street example. Another woman who also works at Coologee, her husband just launched a fantastic sci-fi Dungeons and Dragons bookstore retail experience in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm going to shout out to Parallel Universe. Um,
Amazing.
and what's great about what they're thinking about is that it's not just about selling the books or the games. They've created a place for like-minded people to come and hang. and they're having D&D nights, and they're putting events together. You're able to have a sci-fi event, right? They just had their first holiday party that was sort of mystical magically themed, which feels so much more unique, than if you were to go and do it at, the local bar with the nachos and and the hot dogs or what have you. And so I think this idea of, us as business owners and curators of our brand, we really can project out who we are, who our personalities are, and should be doing so because we're living in a world of abundance and option. And if we think about our brand as almost a beacon that's calling back like-minded people, sort of gathering a community, then what does that reacquisition and customer experience look like if we come from that mindset? How do we build our community up? What other things can we do because of who we are as a brand? In the instance of Parallel Universe, they absolutely are selling
Yeah.
the sci-fi books, the comics, the Dungeon and Dragon game modules. But that's not just what they are doing. They're igniting a passion around something that hasn't necessarily always had a place, a home that feels comfortable, and they're giving it a home and a platform. And so I think that that's sort of the mentality that we need to have, because if you can welcome a person who comes for the first time into a store like that and say, "Hey, come back because here's what we have." And then you can send follow-up to say, Here are the kinds of people that are here. Here are the moments that you could be participating in." So it's almost a reactivation of that beacon, that light. Um, it just feels good because ultimately, I think what I'm talking about is creating a sense of belonging and fit. And I think that's what brands are meant to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because the way you're seeing it, and I think it's intuitive, at least when you're early on in business, that you're just inviting people to join you. It's like, "Hey, this is what we're doing. I'm gonna invite you to come along. We're gonna have a great time, I hope," right? So that is sort of the first couple of years where you're just inviting people. And then as things start to grow or as things start to develop, I think we lose that sense of invitation because there's already people in here with us. So somewhere in between, I think we do get more to like, you should join us because of these benefits, right? So then we start talking about the benefits of, being a customer and things instead of saying, to your point, this is who we are, this is what we do, we're having a lot of fun with it, we'd love to have you come in, and, hey, you don't have to come into the room and figure out who to talk to. We got somebody who's gonna guide you in, they're gonna teach you what you need to know about us, we're gonna learn about you, and that entire interaction, uh, is it's it's again about that brand evolving to the point where you still keep the door open, you still want more people to come into the room with you, but the gap, again, is that introduction to everybody else who's already there. That onboarding piece is what I'm seeing as a gap in this conversation is that maybe we're just not doing a good job, but we didn't know we needed to because that's not conventional marketing wisdom. Or,
And I'll tell you, I
you know?
And I know this for myself, right? And when, Coologee is doing a really good job, we are onboarding new clients.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? You have the kickoff calls where you make sure everybody knows who's at the table because it is an integrated team that works on our client's business. And you talk about, "Oh, this is Allison, and she's your go-to to make sure everything gets done, and here's all of her information." And you set an expectation, "Don't worry about when you reach out to us. We'll make sure we get back to you in X amount of time." Even though they've purchased a scope of work, we go through it and we say, "All right, remember, this is what we're trying to do. Now let's talk about who needs to be involved. Let's start to get the key dates on the schedule." That's onboarding, right? And when you do that well, that means that people have greater confidence and excitement to do what is essentially the beginning of the hard work, right? Like selling the project, selling the relationship. That's not the hard work. It's delivering on it if you're in something more than a transactionally based organization. Um, and so making sure that you're not underestimating the fact that, yeah, they might have selected you, but that doesn't mean they're expert in how you do your work in your business. And if it's somebody that hasn't been there in a while, you have to re-onboard,
Right.
right? You think about home purchases. Most people are staying in their homes for a long time. They might have bought 2 homes before. That doesn't mean they know how to do it. Now that they've done it 15 years later, they're going to sell and they're going to purchase. And so not forgetting that that's an important part. Because at the end of the day, if you're holding somebody's hand and saying, "This is what to expect, and here's what's coming next," then there's gratitude because that's caregiving and that's education and that's empowerment, and that's what most people want in their lives.
Right. Going back to the digital and the AI, I saw a perspective probably about 6 months ago that I thought was pretty fascinating and about why the internet and the communities built on the internet, especially early on, were so important to people who may have interests that are more niche than mainstream, right? So, the example was collecting sea glass. Now, I didn't know a whole lot about sea glass at all. I watched it. I watched the documentary because I'm just kind of that guy. But it was very interesting that the point was if you were the one kid on the block who collected sea glass and your entire neighborhood, nobody else collected sea glass and they didn't understand what you were doing, you could go on the internet and you could immediately find the community of people who, like you, wanted to collect sea glass. And I thought that is so
Mhm.
incredibly interesting.
Couldn't agree more, yes.
And the internet in that way, building these communities where you could find those like-minded people, to your point, the people who are interested in the things that you're interested in. But I also see how that has also evolved over probably the last decade, where now people probably should be doing meetups. If you have a group of 50 people who like to collect sea glass, I don't think people are as enthralled with watching that happen and unfold online. To your point about the AI and the trust in the environment now, because anybody can hack reviews, right? So those five-star reviews that we used to be able to rely on, maybe we can't anymore because they were AI generated by some spam, right? And I think that that's maybe not articulated, but I think that that's where the market is right now with kind of this lower trust.
Well,
So
I yes, keep going then. You
yeah,
may
I was
you
just gonna
think of
say, so, I
something.
mean, I'm interested in your thoughts as you were saying we're starting to not trust digital and we're moving. I wanna just honor the fact that people sometimes found those niche communities in digital, and they're losing trust there. I mean, obviously for the reasons we're talking about, but how do we bridge that?
Um, so I love that you brought this up because it is reminding me of those heydays, like the salad days of Facebook when it first started, or of list serves.
Yeah,
For me, when I was growing up, it was all about independent music. And back in the day, I would wait for the mail to come to see the distributors list, and they were on these pieces of paper with mouse type, and then you would write a letter, and you send a check or a check order, then you wait for it to come back, and sometimes you would write to the musician. There were fanzines that brought people together, you would go to shows, and I still have a box of letters, which was how I was doing it before the internet, and then there were the listservs, and there was the ability to reach out and have direct relationships with these musicians, and I think that that was, in fact, the secret power of Twitter way back when.
wow,
Right? When it was first initiated, it took that barrier down between us and them.
yeah,
And you could do a direct tweet at somebody that felt that they were inaccessible or you put up on a podium. What I think ended up happening is as more and more people went there, it lost its ability to connect the niche and has gone to the mass. And I think that with the adoption of AI, And it's only going to make that more difficult to parse through because they've become content publishing platforms. They're
Mm,
no longer people connecting
connecting
platforms.
platforms.
And so what I'm seeing, again, I've got teenagers, right? My oldest is about to be 20. My youngest is 16, and I've got a 17, almost 18-year-old in between there. They are finding a way to do it, but their selectivity is on things like Snapchat because they are ephemeral. You have tracking. There is signals of this is a real person. Whether you like it or not, it is one of the ones that is out there that feels more human to human connection. The other places they're going are places like Patreon, right? For those that are
Oh,
artists
yeah,
and
yeah.
creators, right? Pay $5, podcast. You become part of a community that has a way of having conversations. That is allowing for people to find their sea glass or their, sci-fi shop that has more of a select few, a niche, a community than otherwise. And then the last place is Discord servers,
Mm.
right? Where you are able to have conversations with people. And right now, for what I know, there's still people, right? There could be a day and age when that goes away too. But my almost 20-year-old met one of her best friends on a Minecraft Discord, and for the first, literally when she was in the 4th grade, for the first time ever, because she lives in Indianapolis, she's coming here in March, and they're meeting in real life.
Isn't that fun?
I mean, she's in college, and she's been friends with this person because of Discord, and that is still really, really powerful, but I don't think as business owners, I'm even saying this to myself right now. I'm not going first to, "Oh, well, we need to have a presence on Patreon. We have to have a Discord server.
Right.
We should be on Snapchat and act like a person." Those are things I haven't thought about. But by way of this conversation, those are the places where there's still some kind of thumbprint of humanity.
Yeah.
So
I wanna
my
say that
God.
I wanna say I've seen some cool stuff on, like, TikTok Live. There's a
Mhm.
bourbon guy, and I would shout him out right now, "Bourbon guy, you know who you are, because I watch you." And he'll sit down and he'll talk about the bourbons that are released and the processes of, making them and what their availability is and where they can find them. And he'll sit down live and he has these conversations. But I think there's gates there, like 10,000 followers or something.
Mm.
I don't know all the details because I don't do it, but it's another way maybe where that humanity can come up is the
Mhm.
live platforms. I know Facebook used to do Facebook Live. I don't know all the things anymore. But this is and if you're listening today, I'm hoping you're also kind of exploring this aha moment I think that we're having about how we're evolving, but we're actually kind of going back. But people really do need that reassurance that you're going to be here, that if you choose to do business with us, we're not going anywhere. I think that's the other piece of it. There have been so many businesses that opened and closed throughout the
Mm.
pandemic. And I think that this discussion around that gap between that onboarding and retention, I do see it now, like, in this conversation as a gap that maybe this is something we should do another episode in the future and try to address a little bit more.
Well, I think probably, and I know, you and I were talking a little bit about what happens too when businesses transfer from one generation to another.
Yeah,
And so that notion of reassuring that you will be around
right.
as a succession is happening is going to become even more critical as we look at the rate of retirement. Um, I think I think the latest number I saw was $90 billion of wealth and business asset transfer is going to happen in the next 15 to 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
And so the face of business ownership, the face of wealth
Yeah.
is going to turn so fast that folks that are in financial advisory or banks or CPAs, the profile of who you're serving is going to change extraordinarily fast. And the question I keep asking my clients is, are you ready?
Right before we started recording, you were like, "If we get a chance, I'd like to talk about Cracker Barrel," and that
Uh-huh.
just segued us into the
Yeah.
succession, right? I love how these shows come together. So yeah, let's talk about the generational shift and while they're an enterprise size, multiple locations, thousands of employees, definitely bigger marketing budget than most of us on Main Street. What happened?
Yeah. You know what? It's funny because it began in the summertime.
Mhm.
And, I was intrigued about it because of the fact that and I'll call myself out, I wasn't, like a tried and true Cracker Barrel customer, but I know a lot of people who are, and so if we remember in the summertime, the company decided it was rebranding. And I'm positive that really smart people put a lot of market research, time in to understand in what way can we modernize. Because if you take a look at the type of brand that Cracker Barrel is, and if you went into the dining rooms, it was an aging customer base. And if you want to have a viable future, it's natural business owners, marketing organizations, hospitality teams are trying to figure out how do we get the young people in.
Can
I think what
can I just interject one other thing? What I remember most about Cracker Barrel, also since it was a summer thing, is where they're likely positioned, they're gonna be near road trip places, like,
Yeah, they're really
exit
close to the
highway.
highways.
Yes.
They're close to the highways. I
Okay.
mean, and you see their signs
Yeah.
everywhere. It's, I think either it might not be the most visible, but if not second to like the M archways, right?
Okay, okay.
Which also was so prolific across our country.
So, yeah, summertime to me just seemed a little bit like, people are on road trips and taking vacations.
So they are, and the thing that they know most is those logos that are on those big poles.
Right.
And I think the point is much more that, yes, they changed their logo. I don't think that is why people were angry,
Yeah.
because people were angry. The people who still go to Cracker Barrel and want to continue to go, they felt like they were being turned away or said that you're not welcome anymore, right?
Wow.
Because of the fact that the things that they love the home country store. I mean, this is a brand that understood that there is a huge population in the US that wants to feel at home when they're on the road. And they want to feel at home in a country, salt of the earth kind of way, even if they're on the coasts. And so when you talk about a beacon for a company that was named Cracker Barrel, but its position was the hometown country store experience with the food that you get, that connotes so much on an emotional level. So you take out the personal representation, like the human representation from it, and you take out the country storeness of it, is what they ended up doing. And so it was symbolic of saying, we're no longer going to be that home when you're away from home. They even went one step further and they took out a lot of the fan favorites on the menu, the comfort food.
Oh my god.
Now, I understand operationally. So 99 Restaurants is a pretty large establishment, or used to be, and they were my client for years and years and years. And we actually had to also do a bit of a refresh because it was 2008, and there was a huge recession that happened back then, and the entire restaurant chain had been focusing all of its new store design, menu design, promotions around the dual income, no kids segment, the folks that had extra time. And so we were expanding the bars, and we were making sure happy hour was happening, and we had bar foods that were happening, and the music was even catered to 30, 40 somethings, 50 somethings that had disposable income and disposable time. And then the recession happened.
Right.
And guess who was underemployed or unemployed more?
Right.
The dinks. And so they did a hard right in terms of their going out because if you're underemployed, you can't go to the bar every day.
Right.
Like, that's such an obvious thing, but do you know who had to keep going out? It's the small families who were doing it because Johnny just had a really good baseball game, and maybe other times we would have gone to the fancier restaurant, but we still wanna celebrate, and the price point is okay at the 99, and so that moment of celebration, right? Sally got an A plus, grandma's got a birthday. They aren't going to stop celebrating, they just have to have a place where they feel okay celebrating that's now at a lower cost point. And so that's what we did. We changed the menus around. We didn't take away the fan favorites. We didn't get rid of the bar, but we did look at the form factor, right? I remember when we did our first redesign, my kids were young. And I remember going there and these things unfolded. And we have waters on the table. We've got the popcorn on the table. I've got 3 kids between the ages of 3 and 7 who are hangry. And now I'm supposed to have all of us open up these massive, awkward things. No, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And so we made it so it was compact. And we made it so that on every page, we had 1 or 2 fan favorites, which we literally call them that, which is why the core would always come back. And then 1 highlight of something new that was meant to say to these families that were coming in that it's okay if you don't want the fan favorite, which, by the way, is a welcoming moment. If you don't know us, this is what our people like. But if you wanna have the salmon on a cedar plank, which was all the rage back then, we have that too, and that would be highlighted so that you have a reminder of the familiar with an invitation for the new, and it was an evolution of what the restaurant could stand for.
Right.
Going back to Cracker Barrel, I think this week they just acknowledged that those fan favorite meals that they had stopped doing, they're coming back. They're bringing them back. It started in the summer, we're in January.
Yeah.
It's still making news, and
Yeah.
so my whole philosophy is,
Not in a good way that it's making
no, and the thing is that there's nothing old and inaccessible to young generations about, salt of the earth country store. It's just how it operates today is different than how it did 20 years ago.
Right.
You don't walk away from it. You've got trends for homesteading and people making their own bread and sewing their own clothes and the trad wife thing. I don't care if you like it or don't. It's
It's there.
it is a country store thing. You've got the Gaines and Magnolia store and how that farm chic is showing up. You have people looking for community, for a sense of belonging. There's no reason that they couldn't have started to introduce today's country store into the mix and been able to keep the core customer while inviting in others.
Right.
Right? You think about, New York City has family meal tables for folks that don't want to eat alone.
Yeah.
They could have done farm tables that extended, where you have the onesies, the twosies, the threes, and then all of a sudden there's a conversation that's happening. That's what happens in a country store. And by the way, the younger generations don't know how to start those conversations. So going back to welcoming, what do? Maybe you make sure you seat everybody at 7 o'clock and it's like all of these onesies and twosies, and you plop those conversation cards down on the table and you put complimentary, cornbread and biscuits on the table, and you invite people to pass it and have conversations with their neighbor.
Didn't they also get rid of the peg game?
Yeah, I don't know what they're thinking with that.
Okay. Well, we're not here to dissect, a brand or do an autopsy.
But you get my point, right?
I
Which is
do
like
100%.
they could have done,
Yes.
but they have to remember who they are and frankly, who they are for the people that represented their current customer base.
Right, absolutely. Well, this has been an incredible conversation, and I think it's been very eye-opening for me and hopefully most of the listeners or watchers out there that we do have a gap that we do need to kind of maybe start thinking about that needs addressing because people are again looking for that connection and very interesting. This kind of flies in the face of most small business marketing tips and tricks and strategies. So, this is a deeper conversation for people to be reflective and to sit with, and I appreciate that very, very much. So,
Oh, thank you, Dawn. I appreciate you.
yeah, where can people find you, connect with you, lurk you,
Yeah.
climb up the barrels?
That's great. It's funny because I'm a small business owner that's also looking to build my own brand. So I am not consistently, but about to be very consistently findable on Substack.
Okay.
If you look for Cat Holt, that's CAT, last name HOLT, or Brand is Business, you should find some work there. And there'll be conversations like this one, as well as podcasts that we're launching and thought leadership pieces that we're going to be sharing. LinkedIn, you can find me there. More than welcome to reach out to me and have conversations if you're curious. The only thing that I ask is don't try to sell me something. I'm not interested. I don't have time. But if you in earnest want to have a conversation, I'm here to help the community of folks that are looking to kind of make themselves a little bit better. And then lastly, we have a website. Don't judge its layout. We are the cobbler's kids, but we are in the practice of improvement. And once again, we're relaunching, but that's at www.coologee.com. That's COOLOGEE.com.
Amazing. So we're gonna put all those links down inside the show note. By the time this episode airs, we should be able to go directly to your Substack. You can subscribe, have that conversation, and if you've also, because I've been reminded 100 times, if you enjoyed this conversation, you'd like to see more business mastery, make sure you subscribe or add us to your playlist so that you can get more of these amazing perspectives. So, Kat, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
today. It's incredible, and really looking forward to it. We will have to circle back. Hate that term, but I don't have a better one to see whether or not we can fill these gaps and have another conversation in the future.
I would love that. Yeah, I mean, we're always curious, so let's keep on trying to figure out where we can get better.
I love that. All right, we'll talk to you all next time on the next episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to DawnKKennedy.com, and you can now check us out on YouTube, as well as, of course, any of your favorite platforms that host podcasts. Take care.